My ex-wife banned me from our son's wedding, and he agreed. But let's see how much he'll still side with her when I start taking back everything I paid for. My name is Mark. I'm 46 years old and I have two sons, Ryan, 25, and Noah, 21. Their mother, Susan, and I divorced when the boys were still very young after she had an affair. She was the one who walked out on the family. I stayed, raised our sons on my own, and did my best to be both mother and father. Susan was never exactly what you'd call a devoted mom. Anyone could see that. But hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the situation. As for me, I gave it everything I had. I sacrificed my entire life just to make sure my boys grew up safe and well cared for. Now, Ryan is engaged to a young woman named Lily, a girl I used to really like. When he told me about the wedding, I was genuinely happy. I was glad he found someone to love him, and I wanted to do everything I could to help. Since Susan and I never really had a proper wedding, I wanted my son to have what I once dreamed of. I immediately offered to pay for everything, from the venue in downtown Chicago to the flowers, the live music, the decorations. Lily had always liked a specific banquet hall, so I booked it without hesitation. I thought things were going great until one morning Ryan called. He said, "We've decided to scale the wedding down." I was a bit surprised, but didn't think much of it. I figured maybe they wanted to trim the guest list or ran into a budget issue. I even offered to host it in my backyard. It's spacious, green, and could make for a cozy wedding setting. But Ryan declined. Then there was a pause, and he said, "Actually, Mom doesn't feel comfortable if you're there. I hope you understand it's my and Lily's special day." That was it. No apology, no discussion, no asking for my thoughts, just a decision and a hang-up. I stood there, phone in hand, completely frozen. If you're thinking, well, it's his wedding, that's his right, then maybe you've never carried an entire family on your back for 2 decades. I was the one who stayed, the one who gave up everything. And now I'm being pushed aside like a stranger, all because of the woman who tore us apart. I still remember the day Susan left like it happened yesterday. Ryan was just 8. Noah wasn't even 4. Susan and I had been college sweethearts, young and full of dreams. I thought it was forever. But things started falling apart not long after we got married. Susan got pregnant with Ryan during our senior year. Everything changed fast. Both our families pushed for us to do the right thing, so we had a quick courthouse wedding, just a handful of close friends. No dress, no music, no honeymoon. We thought love would be enough. It wasn't. I worked 2 jobs, one at the post office, one at a grocery store. Susan stayed home with Ryan just like she wanted. When I landed a logistics job, things seemed to be looking up. Then came Noah. I thought we were finally on track. But Susan changed. She became cold, distant, like she didn't want to be there anymore. I thought maybe it was postpartum depression. I tried to be understanding. But one night, after a fight about how disconnected she'd been, Susan admitted she'd been cheating. With Jack, my best friend from college, and Jack had been like family. He visited us in the hospital when Ryan was born. He used to rock Noah to sleep on our couch, and all that time, he was sneaking around with my wife, while I was working overtime to buy diapers. Susan said family life felt suffocating, that she needed to live for herself, that she didn't love me anymore. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I told her, if you want to leave, go. And she did, packed her things that very night and walked out of the little apartment we used to call home. It was raining. She left while the kids were sleeping. The next morning, Ryan went into her room, came out confused. "Where's Mom?" he asked. I didn't know what to say. Noah was too young to understand. But Ryan wasn't. He cried until he passed out. I'd never seen him like that. As for me, I sat in the living room, head in my hands, trying not to fall apart. The woman who promised forever, the friend who I trusted more than anyone, they both left me with 2 kids and a shattered heart. For years I lived like a ghost. No time for myself, no dating, no peaceful evenings. My life revolved around 3 things: Ryan, Noah, and the bills. Chicago is a cold city. People walk past you without a glance. Nobody notices a man hauling groceries with two little boys and a face full of exhaustion. But I didn't have a choice. I didn't want my kids to feel they were missing anything. I worked full-time at a shipping company, starting at 5 a.m. In the evenings, I delivered bread for a bakery just to make ends meet. Every time I saw them sleeping, I told myself, "Hang in there, Mark. Do it for them." Ryan's always been the sensitive one. He tried to act tough, but I knew he missed his mom. I once found him hiding in his room, holding an old photo of all of us before Susan left. Noah, on the other hand, seemed to forget Susan completely, like his little brain erased the pain to protect itself. Every time the boys got sick, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I did everything I could to make sure they didn't feel alone. I learned how to cook by watching YouTube videos, decorated our old Christmas tree with thrift store ornaments, and kept track of every penny in a worn-out notebook, just so I wouldn't fall short on rent. Every decision I made had one goal: to make sure my kids never felt abandoned the way I did when Susan slammed the door and walked out. There were nights I was so exhausted I'd fall asleep on the couch while Noah watched cartoons, mornings when I forgot who I even was. Just Dad, the ride, the lunch money guy, the one who signs the absence slip. But I never once complained. People often say single moms are heroes, and I agree. But maybe there should also be a word for dads like me, the ones who stayed. I'm not perfect. I've snapped under pressure, raised my voice when I shouldn't have. There were moments when I'd lose my temper, then sit alone in the kitchen afterward filled with guilt. But I love my sons more than anything in this world. I don't need praise. I just want them to know I was there, from beginning to end. Even when Susan left without a word, I stayed. I was the one who didn't walk away. Susan came back at the most unexpected time, right when Ryan started college and Noah was a senior in high school. After nearly a decade of living as though we never existed, she reappeared in the neighborhood with a sugar-sweet smile and a voice as soft as a breeze, like the past was just a dream we'd all forgotten. But the real shock wasn't that she came back, it was that she brought Jack with her. Yes, Jack, the man who used to be my best friend, now legally married to the woman who used to be my wife. They walked hand in hand into Noah's parent-teacher conference like some model couple, and suddenly I was the one being looked at sideways by teachers, the principal, even other parents, as if I was the one who'd abandoned my family. I didn't know whether to laugh or just get up and leave. I never stopped her from seeing the boys. I believed deep down that the kids should decide for themselves if she deserved a second chance. Ryan, surprisingly, was pretty open. He hadn't forgotten what happened, but there was clearly still a space in his heart labeled Mom that I could never fill. Susan slid right into that space with sparse phone calls at first, then just us coffee dates, and eventually weekend getaways to make up for lost time. Noah was different. He looked at her like she was a stranger and rejected every invitation, every call. I remember him once saying, "She picked Jack over us. She has Jack now. Let her live with that." I didn't interfere. I just nodded and put a hand on his shoulder. I've never taught my boys who to love, and I certainly can't teach them who to forgive. What hurt the most wasn't that Susan was welcome back. It was how everyone around us, family, friends, even folks from church, started to forget what she did. They began calling her a brave mother, a woman who made mistakes but turned her life around. And me, I became too strict, too rigid, stuck in the past. They didn't see the nights I stayed up doing homework with Ryan under the kitchen light, the times I slept in hospital chairs when Noah had an asthma attack, the way I wrapped every Christmas gift in old newspaper just so the boys could have a real holiday. Susan returned with her past, her smiles, and the wounds she never had to carry. But it wasn't her who had to live with the wreckage. It was me and my sons who stayed behind and had to learn how to keep living with the cracks she left in our foundation. At first, I truly liked Lily. She was exactly the kind of woman a father hopes his son will marry. smart, kind, driven, respectful. She called me Dad Mark from the first day we met, brought homemade pies on Thanksgiving, and always asked how she could help with family dinners. Lily made me feel appreciated, something, honestly, I hadn't felt in a long time. When Ryan told me they were engaged, I was overjoyed. I saw him becoming a man. I saw hope in his eyes, a future he believed in. I told him I'd cover the entire wedding, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. I wanted him to have everything I never got. A real wedding, warm and unforgettable. Lily seemed touched. She even emailed to thank me. She and Ryan started checking out venues, florists, everything. I was happy when they picked the downtown Chicago banquet hall. Lily said it had been her childhood dream. I paid the deposit, booked the vendors, arranged for the music, the catering, everything they needed. I thought everything was going perfectly. Until I started noticing the little things, tiny details that didn't seem important at first, but slowly added up. Lily was growing unusually close to Susan. They were meeting up more than needed. Lunches, coffee dates, even working on the guest list together. At first I thought, well, it's good they're bonding. But then Lily began avoiding questions about the wedding. Questions she once loved to answer now got a forced smile and a, "we'll talk about it later." Ryan began acting different too. Busier, distant. If he came by, it was quick and distracted. The way he looked at me, something had changed, like he was carrying a weight he didn't know how to name. Anytime I brought up the wedding or asked if they needed help, he'd mumble something and avoid eye contact. I felt something was wrong. Then I heard from a friend that Susan had let something slip at a party, that Lily had said I might not be the easiest person to have around at a wedding. Just one little sentence, but it chilled me. The daughter-in-law I had trusted completely was now aligning herself with the woman who had once destroyed everything I held dear. I didn't see it coming. I was wrong. And that truth, it's been weighing on me ever since. I can't even say when exactly things went off course. Maybe it was the day I saw Lily quickly lock her phone when I entered the room. Maybe it was the phone call from Ryan about downsizing the wedding with no mention that I was being excluded. Or maybe it was the day Susan posted a photo of her and Lily on Facebook, captioned "mother-daughter bonding" with the hashtag #WhatBrideTribe. But no matter when it started, the truth eventually crept out, slow, silent, like a beast crawling out of the dark. And then it stood there, naked, undeniable. An old friend, someone who'd originally been on the wedding guest list, called me after a pre-wedding party. He said, "Mark, I think you should know, it seems like Susan's been convincing Ryan and Lily to cut you out of the wedding. She says you're too controlling, and that this day is for Ryan and Lily, not for you." At first I didn't believe it. I wanted to think maybe he misheard. But something made me check a few of the service contracts, decor, sound, catering, and I realized Lily had quietly changed the primary contact from my name to hers. I didn't even know when it happened. All communication was now through Lily and Susan. I was out of the loop. I called Ryan. I asked him directly, "Do you really not want me at your wedding?" He was quiet for a moment, then answered in a voice so calm it chilled me. "I just think, if having you there makes Mom uncomfortable, it's better to keep the peace that day. You'll have the rest of your life with me. She doesn't." I had no words. I didn't know what hurt more, that my son pushed me aside like some unwanted detail, or that he used my own sacrifices to justify choosing the woman who once abandoned him. Ryan didn't know, or maybe he did, and just didn't care, that Susan had never really apologized. She never owned up to what she did. And now, not only was she forgiven, she had the power to decide who belonged at her son's most important day. And Lily, the girl I once saw as the daughter I never had, was helping her do it. Maybe she didn't know the whole story, but I couldn't believe someone as smart as Lily didn't realize she was being manipulated. Or worse, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she'd chosen that side all on her own. I hung up the phone and sat in my small kitchen, staring at the wedding invitation still sitting on the table. A formal card embossed that read, "You are cordially invited." Yet the man who paid for the entire day wasn't invited at all. It wasn't just that I was excluded from a wedding. I had just realized I'd been pushed out of my own son's life. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying Ryan's words over and over. Mom only has one special day. As if I, the man who gave up his youth to raise him, was just some background extra in his family movie. I thought about the years I walked through snow to get to my early shift, just so I could leave work early and drive Ryan to piano lessons. I thought about the nights I ran 5 blocks carrying Noah in my arms because his asthma kicked in and I couldn't get a taxi. I thought about the times I lived off instant noodles for a week just to afford sending them on school camping trips. And then I thought, if I wasn't good enough to be part of the wedding, then I sure as hell didn't need to be the one paying for it. The next morning, while the city was still half asleep, I sat at my desk and opened every contract I had signed. The banquet hall, the event planner, the flowers, the band, the caterers. I started making calls one by one. The wedding was scheduled for that weekend, but luckily there were still a few days. Some places charged a cancellation fee, others kept the deposit. I didn't care anymore. I had already lost more than a few $1,000s. I had lost the respect of the son I used to think was my entire world. I canceled everything. Quietly, no warning, no explanation, no complaints. Like I was gathering whatever pride I had left and stitching it together to cover my broken heart. The sad part? Even then, I felt guilty. I asked myself, am I being petty? Am I ruining their special day out of spite? But then I remembered one thing. I wasn't invited. I wasn't part of the day. I was just an open wallet, expected to pay with no voice, no seat, no presence. And when I was done, I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of whiskey, a drink I reserve for moments that truly matter, and sat silently by the window. Outside, the city spun on. People got married, divorced, betrayed, and forgave every single day. I don't know if I did the right thing. I don't know if this counts as revenge or just a wounded man's last act of dignity. But I do know one thing. If I wasn't worthy of being a guest of honor, then don't expect me to be your silent sponsor. The wedding day came faster than I thought. I didn't contact anyone after the cancellations. I didn't call Ryan. I didn't tell Lily. I didn't even mention it to Noah. I figured if I wasn't invited, I had no obligation to explain. Let them walk into their big day and find out for themselves. Around 9 a.m., while I was sipping coffee in silence, my phone rang. It was Ryan. I didn't answer. A minute later, it was Lily, then the wedding coordinator. I still didn't pick up. Eventually, Ryan left a voicemail. His voice was almost frantic. Dad, do you know what's going on? The venue's canceled. No one came to set up, no flowers, no music, no food. People are already on their way. Please call me back. I took a sip of coffee. Honestly, a part of me felt relieved. Relieved that maybe, just maybe, they now understood a little of the hurt I'd felt, being pushed out of their lives. I called back a few minutes later. Ryan picked up immediately, still sounding shaken. Dad, what happened? Why is everything canceled? Did you know? I answered calmly. Yes, I was the one who canceled it. Dead silence. I could picture his face, shocked, furious, disbelieving. And then he asked, why? I replied slowly, one word at a time. You said it was your day. You chose who could be there and who couldn't. I respected that. But you forgot. Just like guests, the person paying also gets a say. Ryan didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he started pleading, please, Dad, people are arriving now. Can't you do something? We just need the venue, just the ceremony space at least. Please. I cut him off. I think you should call your mom, or Lily. Seems like they have more say in this than I do. Then I hung up. I heard later that Ryan had to email all the guests saying the wedding was postponed due to technical difficulties, and they'd send updates soon. Susan rushed to set up her backyard as a last-minute venue. As for Noah, He called me right at noon, his voice calm like he was commenting on the weather. They said you canceled everything. I told them, if you're not invited, I'm not going to some half-hearted wedding either. I smiled, not because I'd won, but because at least someone in the family hadn't forgotten who stayed when everything fell apart. The wedding did happen in the end, but not the way they'd imagined in their Pinterest boards or polished plans. Not in the elegant Chicago ballroom, not with the live band playing that love song they carefully chose. It happened in Susan's backyard under a few hastily strung lights and sheer curtains blowing in the wind. I heard from a cousin that less than a third of the guests showed up. Some were too busy, some got the last-minute venue change email too late, and some, I suspect, just didn't want to walk into a family mess. I wasn't there. I didn't snoop online for pictures. I didn't ask anyone how it went. Everything I know came from a relative who summed it up with, "It didn't feel like a wedding, more like a last-minute class reunion." Noah kept his word. He didn't go. He came over to my place that afternoon with a pizza box and 2 cold beers. All he said was, "Let's have dinner," like we always do. I nodded, swallowing the lump of gratitude in my throat. We ate in the living room, the TV playing a baseball game no one was really watching. Nobody mentioned the wedding. Nobody said Ryan's name. But in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, like I wasn't completely alone. That night, after Noah left, I sat by myself. I thought about everything, the years of solitude, the sacrifices, the countless times I tried to stitch our family back together like patching an old worn coat. And now that coat had ripped again. And this time I realized I didn't have the strength to mend it anymore. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel triumphant. The wedding falling apart didn't make me happy. I just felt empty. Because deep down, I had still hoped, foolishly, that if I tried hard enough, long enough, our family might feel whole again. But maybe I was wrong. Family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, the choice to stay, the choice to forgive, the choice to value each other. And Ryan, by excluding me from the most important day of his life, had made his choice. So I made mine. After that day, Ryan and I didn't speak again. No calls, no messages, no apology, no explanation. I know he's probably ashamed or angry or both. But that silence, long and heavy, is the clearest confirmation. The gap between us isn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It's a real, deep crack. I didn't go looking for him. I didn't try to patch things up. No handwritten letters, no mutual friends reaching out on my behalf. After everything I've been through, I think I've earned the right to just sit and breathe, to stop chasing a relationship only I seem to be holding on to. Noah still comes by every week, sometimes just to drop off a coffee, sometimes to stay for dinner, sometimes we just sit together and watch an old movie. He doesn't talk much about his brother, but he understands, and that's enough for me to not feel like a total failure. A few weeks later, I received a thank you card from Ryan and Lily, one of those printed ones with the words, "Thank you for being part of our special day." I stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. Not out of anger, but because I honestly found it funny. How can someone thank you for a day they purposely kept you out of? I still live in the same old apartment, the one that watched my boys grow up. The kitchen where I taught Ryan how to make pancakes is still there. The couch with the lopsided cushion where Noah used to watch cartoons every night, still there. Everything remains, like quiet little monuments of a life that once was full, once had hope, and once fell apart. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Ryan will knock on my door someday. Maybe he won't. But I no longer sit waiting. I've learned to move forward, not with bitterness, but with acceptance. I don't know if I was right or wrong in all of this. Maybe I was too proud. Maybe I acted in a way no father should. But I know one thing for sure. I didn't walk away. And sometimes that's enough.